Hello everybody, this is TJR. On October 2nd, recording engineer Geoff Emerick passed away, apparently from a heart attack. Geoff Emerick has a large, impressive list of credits, the amount of albums and artists that he's worked with, but of course, he's always going to be more than likely best known for working with the Beatles and for working on some of their most iconic albums. Earlier this year, I was at the NAMM show in Anaheim, California, and I don't want to say that I got to meet Geoff Emerick, but I got to sit in a room, a very small, intimate room, and hear him talk about his work with the Beatles, how he got started as just a young kid, how he met the Beatles when only the locals really knew them. He was there for their first recording session. He wasn't the engineer at this point, but he was there. And he talked about how the first album that he worked on with them as the recording engineer was the Revolver album. And then he went on at some length about his work on the song Tomorrow Never Knows, which for me is really one of the most startling songs in the Beatles catalog. Reports vary. Some state that he was 19 at the time he started work on Revolver. Others say that he was 20. But 19, 20, you're still just a kid. You're still fresh out of high school in my book. Now think about this for a moment. He's a young kid. It's his first project as the recording engineer. And John Lennon tells him, I want to sound like the Dalai Lama chanting from a hilltop. Once again, it's the 60s. We're dealing with very primitive 4-track analog tape machines. How would you create what the artist has asked you for? And this is where I have to just marvel at his ability to think outside the box. Now, once again, you've probably heard this story before. I know I have. He looked around at what they had in the studio, and his solution was to take the rotating speaker from the organ that they had there in the studio. They had, I think, probably a Leslie organ or a church organ of some sort, and it has a rotating speaker. And if you're not sure what that means, it's a speaker that rotates around like this. And organs, of course, had these. And he had the idea, okay, he basically jimmy-rigged a microphone input into that speaker so he could plug a microphone into it and then record that speaker. And that was his solution. I mean, he was really thinking out of the box, and it's only his first job. It's his first job as the recording engineer. And I have to think to myself, I've talked about the Beatles music on this channel before. I've certainly talked about how innovative they were, how far ahead of their time they were, what great songwriters they were. But I've also known that they were very lucky to have gotten to work with the people that they did. They were very lucky to have George Martin there, his musical knowledge, his classical training in music. Imagine if a less inventive, a less out-of-the-box thinking engineer had been there instead when Lennon requested this. And their only thought was, well, I'll crank up the reverb, I guess. I don't know. And I've read that, Geoff Emerick realized the reverb unit that they had there, probably some old-style box spring reverb unit, wasn't going to do it. It was just not going to create that effect. And so he had this idea, let's plug into this Leslie rotating speaker. I'll create a mic input for it that doesn't exist, and I'll jimmy-rig that, and we'll plug the mic in. We'll record that and see how it sounds. Probably put some reverb on it too, but that's, I think, is the amazing thing, is that he was dealing with very primitive equipment. He's given a very abstract request, and he figures it out with what they have. And it's brilliant. He was there, of course, to promote his book entitled Here, There, and Everywhere, My Life Recording the Music of the Beatles. I could have walked up and introduced myself and said, "Hi, good to meet you," that sort of thing. But I tend to be somewhat the introvert in these kind of social situations. And had copies of his book been there for sale, I would have snatched one up, bought it, and had him sign it right there. But they weren't. And I wished I'd had a copy of his book. I wish I could have had him sign it. He told a number of other stories during that particular panel discussion, whatever you want to call it. But that's the one that really stuck out to me, and it's the one that has really made me think, as talented as the Beatles were, they were also damn lucky. They were damn lucky to have someone like George Martin, and they were damn lucky to have someone like Geoff Emerick there to help them realize their visions. This is TJR, and thank you everybody for watching. Bye-bye.